Welcome to the fourth of my short videos explaining and discussing Crossfire, the World War II company level rules for tabletop games. In this video I'm going to discuss rallying and close combat. So here we have two British squads. One is pinned with a single marker, one is suppressed with two markers. As an action, if I'm the active player, I can try and rally a squad that's got one of these conditions on it. To rally a squad, I roll a single die and I'm looking to beat a target number. The dice score is modified by the quality of the troops trying to rally. They can be green, regular or veteran, and it's also modified if there's a commander nearby. So if this commander turns up and he can be graded as either a 0, +1 or +2, he will add his score to their dice roll if he's their platoon commander. The only other modifier for rallying is you get a +1 if there are no enemy troops within sight. I'm not going to give you a list of the numbers you need because they're in the rules, but if you make it, then the condition is removed and your squad is back to being active and fresh, and if you don't make it, the condition stays and you lose the initiative. Now I'm going to discuss close combat in Crossfire. This is the first aspect of the rules I'm not completely happy with, and once I've shown you how it works according to the rules, I'll explain what I don't like and I'll show you my fix for it. In this example, my British platoon is going to assault these two German squads. In reality, of course, the Germans would be in some sort of terrain probably, but I'm not putting that down as it will interfere with the viewing the action. The first thing I need to do to give me any chance of a successful assault is to ensure that the squads I'm attacking are suppressed. Once I've achieved that, I've got to make sure that my approach is masked from any other supporting German units by the liberal use of smoke. Smoke is laid by mortars or artillery, and I'll cover that in the video where I deal with indirect fire. I'll then move my squads into contact with the enemy. As the active player, I decide when the close combat is resolved. So once I've moved one platoon in, I could maybe move in some squads from another platoon if I had them available, and wait until the odds were really stacked in my favour. But for this instance, we'll just use a single platoon. So the first thing I must ensure is that I engage as many of the enemy as I can. So my first two squads will take on one enemy squad each. I can then dispose of my other available squads as I see fit. In this case, I'm going to split the officer and the remaining squad evenly. Once that's done, I decide which of the combats is going to be decided. There are two individual combats here, but together they make up the full close combat. Each of us is going to roll a single die and compare the results. The higher result is going to win the combat and wipe out completely our opposing opponent. Close combat is brutal and final, so if you do lose a close combat, everyone you've put there is either killed or captured. In game terms, this means they're just removed from play. As you can see, the Germans have rolled a 4 and the British have rolled a 2. However, because my opponents are suppressed, I get a +2, which will bring it up to 4, and because of my officer there, who's a +1 officer, I get his bonus, brings it up to a 5, and I will win and remove those Germans. For the second combat, the Germans have rolled a 6 and I've rolled a 2. Again, I get +2 because they're suppressed, and I get +1 for having an extra squad. This gives me a total of 5. 5 isn't good enough, and this German defender has wiped out both British squads. Because there are squads left from both sides, we will then rearrange ourselves into a third combat, and the winner will be decided by this. With these dice scores, it's a British victory and the final German squad is removed. It's a bit of a Pyrrhic victory though, because I've lost 2 squads as well, so that's not really gained me anything. I don't like initiating close combats in Crossfire for this very reason. It's a very dangerous proposition. If I do have to resort to close combat for whatever reason, the best option is to just send one squad against one squad and hope that the +2 you get from your opponent being suppressed will be enough for you to win. Of course, it's not guaranteed. Adding an officer in can give you that extra +1 or maybe +2, but again there's the risk of losing the officer unless you get enough bonuses to actually make the dice rolling unimportant. Losing a platoon commander is no joke. Some armies in the rules as written require a platoon commander to even be allowed to move. They need to be able to see their platoon commander when they start a move. Losing one consequently is quite crippling. I must admit I never use that rule. I don't need that level of doctrinal difference in my games. Now here's where it gets very tricky. If I pile in another squad, I get a +1 for outnumbering my opponent. If I piled in 2 squads, I get a +2, but for here it's just 1 squad. This is better for me. I've now got +4 to my dice roll, and the German has +0, but I can still roll a 1 and be left with 5, and he can roll a 6 and still beat me. In this example, the German wins, and that one suppressed German squad destroys 2 fresh British squads and a platoon commander. Now obviously there's only a 1 in 36 chance that this will happen, but when it does, and it has happened to me in a game, it's quite devastating. That's almost a third of my available forces wiped out. I could add a third squad from my side, and that would make it academic, because whatever I rolled I'm going to beat or equal what the German rolls, and if I equal him we roll again, and eventually, since I can never get less than him, he's lost, so there's no point rolling the dice, and that would essentially be a foregone conclusion. It's very rare, however, that you can get a whole platoon in against one suppressed squad. Let me explain my main problem with this whole model. If I attack with just one squad, if I attack with a single squad, my squad can generate, if they fight to their best ability, i.e. I roll a 6, they can generate 6 points of whatever you want to call it, combat, force, aggression, whatever, as can the Germans. But in reality, because the Germans are giving me a +2, all the Germans are really mustering, because they're suppressed, is 4 points. So in this example, obviously things are weighted in my favour, not 100%, but fairly significantly, and I'm happy with that as a model of what a close combat between these 2 squads might look like in an abstracted form. If a second fresh British squad joined in, you would expect that they would also contribute a possible 6 points to this encounter, but of course they don't. They just add a +1, which means they rock up fully armed, full of aggression, fighting faces on, bayonets fixed, and then they do the absolute bare minimum. And this is where my problem with the Crossfire close combat rules as written comes. Extra squads don't give you enough of a benefit. In fact, I go further and I'd say an extra squad is actually a liability, because the benefits they give are outweighed by the possibility that they could be wiped out, because they've only given one of their possible 6 points to the fight. My solution that works for me is I give everybody a dice roll. This means that in the majority of cases, 2 fresh British squads in this example would beat the suppressed German squad. But if the British total is 3 or less and the Germans roll a 6, the British are still wiped out. So there is still an albeit small chance for the Germans to turn the tide. The bonuses, in this case the +2 the Germans would hand over, are only applied once to the total. So in this example shown here, the British have scored 3 +2 for their opponent being suppressed, that's 5. Germans got a 6. The Germans do in fact win. The more normal scenario though is that the British will overpower the Germans, and I suppose it's good night Fritz. This to my mind gives a much more realistic outcome to 20 fresh men with the initiative attacking 10, or I guess 12 in the Germans' case, 12 suppressed men who don't know they're coming. It's not a foregone conclusion, but it's as good as. It's not rules as written, however, so obviously you can ignore this, but you've had my thoughts on the matter for what it's worth. In the next video I'll cover indirect fire, which covers barrages, mortar fire, smoke, all that sort of thing, and I'll probably touch on defences such as wire, pillboxes and emplacements. So thank you for watching. Please join me for the next one, and if you've enjoyed this content, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Thanks very much. I'll see you next time.